to find that rhythm and can run quite a distance once they do.
Beautiful shot. They whip out and the triple.
NBK puts us down to a 1v1 and wins it. Takes down one. Jay takes down another. Make that two on top.
Jay! Mo doesn't know, or does he? He wraps around with the pistol. Indy doesn't even react.
By Gavini. Oh my God! Day 2 of Element 1 is upon us. And after today, we'll finally have some seedings to talk about, but that's for tomorrow. Today, I'm Lynx, joined by Seedaps on my left. And Connor, we've got 4 games out of the way with yesterday, and today, the last 4 to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to just push through and just highlight on one game in particular, but game 2, I'm incredibly excited about. It's kind of really hard not to be drawn towards a really traditional tier 2 matchup in the old Biologic squad against the old Wimpy and Inrio crew, but we still have a couple other games we got to get through first.
Yeah, and we also have some highlights from yesterday to talk about. As I mentioned, 4 of our initial 8 set of games happened yesterday, but not necessarily in the order of seeding. We got to consider, schedules and everything like that. So the first game we have coming up after this will be our number 1 seeded game. But the first game that we had yesterday, Connor, you'd think Dilemma were the number 1 seed based on the scoreline by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a game I got to catch a little bit of, and unfortunately for my gang, they looked a little bit lost. Hopefully they can pick things up together. But also on Twitter, if you saw Gang Gaming Triple G, they thought that they were playing against Sintenegra on their home court down in Scus, but they still came out on top regardless of the server situations. It's a roster that we expect and have really high expectations for to go far in this competition, and they didn't disappoint.
Nah, not at all whatsoever. And then for the final couple games, this is where we started having at least maybe one upset when you think of things. The new dogs, at least when it comes to Challenger League. When you think about it, they got the win over Wildcard Aces, but then again, just because JJ the Deputy's been around so long, it feels weird to also remember that this is his first foray into a Tier 2 competition. So technically 2 new bloods going at each other, but unfortunately, JJ taking the first loss in his Tier 2 debut. Then for our final game, we had Karn and Co. taking it in the end. I myself predicted that Karn might lose that game. Maybe a bit of haterade, swaying my judgment. Oh, my bad on my part.
Honestly, unironically, Karn is playing the best Siege of his life right now, and that's kind of weird to say.
He's
He's been around
0-7
for so
on the
long.
screen. Are you sure?
I still think that Karn is a dark horse in this. I think more so his IGLing is actually evolving, where me and you, we've had so much to talk about how Karn's stuck in the past. Oh my gosh, he doesn't know how to evolve to the new meta. I don't necessarily know if that's the case anymore.
Well, it might not. Certainly got the win yesterday against Chunner Esports, but we'll have to see how the rest of our teams do. This is how things are starting to shape up, but emphasis on starting. We have a couple of our upper bracket teams and a couple of our lower bracket teams figured out, but once the games are done today, all of those next set of boxes will be filled, but still, best of 1s, of course. We'll have to wait a couple more days until we get to best of 3s and the possibility of promotion into playoffs. Let's also take a look at our schedule for today. What exactly games are we playing, Connor? Because I mentioned, we've got our number 1 seed game today. Number 1 seed versus number 16. And what do you know it? It's the first game on the docket.
Yeah, SSG Academy, when you slap SSG in front of your name, even if you're an Academy roster, there's automatically going to be these hefty expectations lofted onto your shoulders where they're going to feel so much pressure. They're representing a very prestigious banner. And it's also a good squad of players that have played together and bring a very particular play style that should translate well into this ecosystem.
I think obviously Carry the Boats following after that is going to be a team that a lot of people are looking at with a lot of current pro, ex-pro, up-and-coming pro talent to look at. But this is the start that we have of the day. SSG Academy versus Outlast, who, on the opposite side of things, you talk about a name that lends a lot of credibility, a lot of forethought going into the roster. Outlast has not always had that same, what would you say, Connor? That same reputation at times, that pedigree. Not always the case.
Yeah, Outlast, I've made so many jokes of like, look, they're in first, they're going to be Outlast, but like out first because they're not good. And this time they have earned their spot through the quals. Kind of historically with that organization, not necessarily this roster, they do very well in quals and manage to get to every event, either through CL quals or whatever. But now it's a kind of a different player consistency altogether. So hopefully they bring a little bit more energy to the table. And when you directly earn your spot in a league as opposed to SSG Academy, they got invited. It's creating a nice power dynamic of, hey, there's a lot to prove.
True, but I mean, if we're talking about energy, I mean, it doesn't get more energetic than SSG Academy. The players we have right here, especially Snake, Silent, and Eddie, that core three, these are some of the most aggressive players that we've seen in Tier 2 or Tier 1. I'm thinking Snake and Silent especially. And when you've got Mohess rounding out the support core, this is a guy I remember peaking OXG as Maestro off of the site, running into barrels and killing Newers as the first kill. So if Mohess is the guy rounding out your back line, this is an aggressive team and an energetic team from top to bottom.
Yeah, and with this sort of amalgamation of players, they're going to bring just those little bit of differences in playstyles from their past teams and try to merge them together. If you saw Wafer on Twitter, he was defending them that, hey, this is not just going to be like an XLG playstyle. This is going to have so many different pieces. But at the end of the day, when you've got Snake as well as Silent, who in the Tier 2 ecosystem have always been phenomenal in the entry department, just getting that opening pick over and over again, it's going to be up to somebody like Mohess to make sure that the right calls in the mid-round adaptations allow them to convert those picks properly.
And if we want to move over to Outlast and see how the history of some of these players, how this team might step up for their first game inside of Element 1, we do have one particular storied Tier 2 name here. We got Hitman back in the lobby, back in the server. This is a guy whose story in, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 2 specifically, goes back 4-5 years, I'm talking, and he's still out and kicking. And then you've got, I would say, newer names comparatively, like Weston and Bay on the roster as well, but still not a lot of, unfortunately, staying power from top to bottom, at least when you look at it on face value as opposed to SSG Academy.
Yeah, Hitman always manages to find his way into the league, but finding the success has been the hardest part for him, as well as any sort of different roster that he's been a part of. Hopefully this is a different case when you got some new younger names. I know Weston, he's been on the up and up for quite a little bit, really trying to find his footing, find a place to prove himself as he split off from people like Natural that he was constantly duoing with. But now maybe he'll find his own footing and really kind of bring his team to the forefront.
And I think that's so far what we've seen with Element 1, not just obviously, Outlast or SSG Academy, more so Outlast in this case, but a lot of those names in Tier 3 that when you and I were just starting, we're talking, they were like 14, 15 years old playing in leagues nobody's ever heard of. And now they are finally starting to break above that top Tier 3 threshold into Tier 2. And that's players like Weston, like Natural or Spider that we saw play yesterday and actually win against more established names like JJ, the deputy himself. Element 1 is so far proving to be a breeding ground not only for new talent, but talent that have just now gotten that time to shine in Tier 2. For our matchup today, thankfully for us, Clubhouse Cafe off the board. Had a lot of Cafe yesterday, but definitely would not want to start out my Element 1 debut with a Clubhouse game to say the least.
I like Cafe personally, but it seems like SSG Academy, they don't, or more so, maybe Outlast likes that map a lot more. But as Bank and Villa go down, those are a little more just kind of generalized default maps where if you're SSG Academy, all of a sudden you can swing this map pool into something a little bit more intricate and suited to your strengths to kind of go up against this unproven roster of Outlast that if you get them uncomfortable, you might just kind of win the matchup before it even starts.
And we see Outlast take out some of those maps that might theoretically be strengths for SSG Academy. I mean, Border, Clubhouse, going back to the first one, Bank, SSG Academy are clearly the more experienced team when it comes to the levels those players have played at. Bank is a very complicated map, but we still end on Chalet. And don't be confused, this is a good map for Outlast, at least in the closed quals. They were 2-0 on it by the time they qualified for the league. But this is a map that also favors more aggressive play, and it isn't a map that is as complicated as a map like Bank. This is a simple, sometimes gunfight-heavy map, and with SSG Academy, that sounds like a map that's right up their alley anyway.
Yeah, I think if you were looking from it from SSG Academy's perspective of, hey, we can probably rest on our laurels a little bit more of being a better team and applying that to Theme Park. However, the carrot got dangled in front of them of, hey, let's go to Chalet. And every single player on this roster, even like any team that they've been a part of, have always been a phenomenal Chalet team. So they're all bringing just those bits and pieces once again, like I've been saying, and it's going to go towards a Chalet where arguably, Carter, I think you might agree that SSG Academy is probably the most mechanically gifted, skilled team that we have in this league currently.
Yeah.
And they're going to a pretty gunfight heavy map.
Yeah, I definitely have to say. I mean, obviously, maybe if I put the players all next to each other, I could come up with a different amalgamation of players that are more mechanically gifted. But just off the top of my head, just off of simple recall, I can't recall a better mechanically gifted team than SSG Academy. And Outlast, this is a map that they're comfortable on. Obviously, they decided to go to it. They're 2-0 on it from the closed quals going into the beta stage of Element 1. But SSG Academy, as you said, mechanically gifted. They're very experienced. And also, I just think this is one of those games where the seeding tells it all. This is our number 1 seed going against our number 16. And sometimes the seeding doesn't tell the whole tale, especially once you get to kind of the middle column, like 7 versus 9, 8 versus 10. It can get a little messy. And sometimes even a 1 seed can drop a game to a 16 seed if the quals especially were very chaotic. But this is a case, Connor, I don't think that is so. You just look at the roster in SSG Academy, then you look at Outlast on the other side. It seems to me that this game's a foregone conclusion. I hate to say it, but that's how it seems to me.
Yeah, that's why our predictions all swayed in a very high direction. There was only one other game today, which is the last game that has a unanimous decision besides the coin flip, but that's a coin flip. Even though it's better, right now it's better than your percentage, but
First day, calm down.
Yeah.
I thought JJ'd pull through for me, but I misplaced my faith once again 3 years in a row.
Yeah, but I mean, SSG Academy, they are a lot of people's favorites to win this entire event. And now as they're going into this game, maybe they feel a little bit of pressure, but these players, they've been here before. This is tier 2, and so many of them have played many seasons of tier 2, as well as at a high level, being the sort of playoff caliber teams, always on the cusp or even making the NAL in general with somebody like Mohesi as well as Snake.
Well, we will have a little bit of a breather before we get into the game. We'll have a very short break before we get into our first game of the day, SSG Academy versus Outlast. I wish I could come with better news, but unfortunately, Rice has decided at the 11th hour to restart his PC one final time. So we'll just chill for a few more minutes to make sure we have everything all set in order, all our ducks in a row. And actually, I just heard the ding in my ear right now that somebody might have joined the lobby. So hopefully, Connor, we're in the game in a couple minutes.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, at this point, how much more can we just subtly throw shade at Outlast while subtly bringing forward SSG Academy?
It's not shade. It's not shade. Because here's the thing, right? Throwing shade is like, this team, not all they're cracked up to be. This team, not very good. It's not even that I'm saying Outlast is bad. I just think they're going into a game that's unfortunately their opponents outside of their weight class. They're going against the heavyweight champ or the heavyweight favorite, and they just got their boxing gloves a couple days ago. It's not their fault. Not their fault whatsoever. They just don't have the reps that the other team does.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like if we threw Harrison in the octagon with Conor McGregor and just said, try to survive.
Who's gonna win? Who's making it out? I'll give you a hint. It's not Crow. It's not Crow. He's not the one making it out of the ring that night.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, SSG Academy, they're a good team. They're just flat out a good team. There's a reason they're everybody's favorites. And if you're Outlast, you're starting off at the bottom of the mountain, swinging up towards the top. And maybe that could be a positive sign for them. If they're able to get a little bit of momentum and kind of have your welcome to the league rookie moment where you take that big hit on your first play, then kind of every game's going to be easier in theory from now on.
And to follow that up or to continue that train of thought, SSG Academy are some players on here that I think if you were to classify them in, different kinds of players, these are some players that can maybe get a little overconfident at times. If they think their opponent really is that weak, they're flying out of windows, they're running into hallways, they're sprinting into gunfights and just figuring, hey, I'll probably still win it if I really am the better player. And that is a spot that if Outlast are more than a number 16 seed, and they are a team that should be worried about, maybe not feared just yet, but worried about inside of Element 1, SSG Academy could be caught off guard. This is a best of one after all. They don't have a second or a third map to fall back on if their overconfidence does end up costing them. If they make some key mistakes to start, they drop a few key rounds, we could have an overtime game or a 7-5 game going the other way than everybody thought.
Yeah, I mean, but with 50 million coaches of SSG Academy, hopefully they won't be making those really big mistakes, because I can guarantee you if Snake just whiffs a spawn peak or somehow emulates a forest level jump out and whiffs an entire mag, I think Callout's going to be coming with the ruler and smacking it on his desk.
Yeah, true, but this also goes back to our point, talk about why SSG Academy are favorites. I mean, SSG, will Callout specifically put out a tweet. He's like, SSG, the organization, is looking to field an academy roster, something that rarely happens in Rainbow Six.
Mm-hmm.
And given how legendary of an org SSG is, I can't imagine these were the only 5 people that applied for the job, or the only 5 people who even thought to try out. I have to imagine that everybody from a top tier 2 contender to somebody who just got their keyboard and mouse for Christmas probably wanted to be on that team if they were a fan of Rainbow Six Esports. And the team that we have in front of us is the one that made it through the gauntlet. That Call Out, Mango, the rest of the coaching staff, the organization itself said, we think this is a top contender. We think this is worthy of Space Station Gaming. And it's now here on Chalet that we see if that pedigree, if that reputation is valid.
Yeah, I would say the only other organization that would have as high of a pedigree of being like, hey, we rose to the top, would be being on a prestigious kind of organization like Chunner Esports, really brandishing that flag. But I think we can all know in this ban phase kind of what's gonna happen. There's been a lot of talk about certain defenders really needing to always be banned, and maybe even expanding this map ban phase entirely as we take down the knock on Outlast. That's probably a good choice due to the antics that a lot of these players on SSG Academy can do with that operator.
I think Ying is also a very good ban for SSG Academy, just because it's one of those operators that a team that is a weaker opponent, at least in theory, can use and amplify a lot of either their existing strengths or mitigate a lot of their existing failures. Use those Candelas and turn a broken execute into a bloody but winnable, 1v1 or 2v2. Azami, not necessarily a similar situation. This is just a strong defender you want to get off the board. I mean, how many Kibas is she getting around? 18 billion? Same with Fenrir. How many F-Knots does he have? 5? And you get blinded the moment you walk into them? This is just kind of continuing with the idea of there being very strong defenders and then the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost argue that either Bank or Chalet is Azami's best map entirely, but with those two defenders going down, Fenrir, Azami, both incredibly strong, it does leave open the Solus, which, funnily enough, for Outlast, they are not incorporating.
No Solus whatsoever, but they do have that Valkyrie and they do have that Mira, and they are starting on Kitchen and Dining. So while we won't have anybody roaming around the map, able to spot the drones or the electronics through walls, there's a lot of intel available for the defense to use. Those black eye cameras to help some offsite play, especially if somebody wants to sit over by library or by fireplace hall, and those Miras as well, one of which you could probably place inside a master bedroom or office to then help that hard hold on the northern part of the map. And even put a black mirror if you want, all the way over on mezzanine and library to basically create a fortress around the entire second floor.
Yeah, and then even when you can fall back, if you're having these deep extensions, except I guess Space is just immediately gonna die due to Snake. Sure, there's a refrag on the other side, some more aggression as Bay is able to take down Silent. And that's actually, funnily enough, the Nomad gone within 20 seconds of the round, trying to wrangle in all the chaotic energy that Outlast is already bringing. As Hitman will pick up another one, it's 30 seconds in and 3 people are dead.
It's gonna be one of those games, guys. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. Just prepare. This is how it's gonna be. SSG Academy in the disadvantage. Only 45 seconds in, Snake just barely dodging around a bullet, careening through the window right in front of him. He's got to pick up the fuser as well. 2 players from SSG Academy now down below. The goal here was to send it up through that dining hatch, use those ROU projectors, handled by Rice, now no longer with us, to then cut off the site, send it through that hatch, and put the bomb down. The going up through the hatch part is still possible, Connor, but blinding and cutting off lines of sight, they've only got 1 smoke and some flashes to make that happen.
Yeah, it's really just going to be a gun-heavy execute. Not really much utility for the execute coming through besides maybe those smoke canisters. But Mohes, he's challenging those vertical angles, and Moses up above, he might have the high ground. There's not really anything that SSG Academy can do from a utility standpoint to remove this Valkyrie from this power position. And the more time he wastes, is just going to be the better for Outlast. Trying to force this execute where you can funnel into those nitro cells in the back pocket of Moses. If he survives, as well as Mike, who's just sitting back, actually went ahead and threw that one out. But even still, the flank from Hitman up top, still having vertical pressure, as well as maybe even the frost mats getting a little bit crazy, are going to make things hard.
Ooh, going for the gunfight, but there's a shotgun right around the corner. He doesn't know the Amaru's close by. Eddie able to catch him off guard. Power to the faded 3v3. Make that a 2v3 as Moses, ever so patient by Solar Stairs, uses that remaining C4. Only one left for the defense. Regains the lead for Outlast. Mohes on low HP, his smoke grenade caught earlier on, and now with the flashbangs that Eddie had on the floor, not able to be picked back up. Nothing for SSG Academy to make these gunfights any more palatable. I gotta hope that one player from Outlast swings and they win the fight. Mohes wins it, but Snake gives another back to the defense. Trapped on the floor. It's a 1v2 for the support with the 417. From the back line to the front, it's still Outlast coming out on top.
And the frost mat, exactly what we kind of alluded to, that when you kind of get into that quick last second execute phase, sometimes you forget to check the floor for a bear mat, and boom, the first round goes to Outlast, where they seem to out-aggress SSG Academy in the beginning of this round, Carter.
Able to catch him completely off guard. Well, not completely off guard. Snake did get the first kill, shuts down one of the spawn peaks, but Outlast throw a couple more into the ring. A couple more to try and get a man advantage, and by God, it ends up working. So, maybe a bit of a heat check incoming. Hopefully SSG Academy will maybe take a couple more seconds before traversing out of spawn. Use some drones, quick peek some angles. Make sure that they're not losing any air jabs or smoke grenades or ROU projectors or any important utility right off the rip. Outlast have shown, though, that they're not scared by the org or the team they are facing. We'll have the Solus come out as well, so if you were hoping for more aggressive play and a fearless Outlast, they get a lot of these drones. By the time we hit, even 2 minutes left in the round, they'll feel a lot more emboldened than even they were in round 1.
Yeah, and with SSG Academy slightly tweaking up their attacking lineup, it is a lot more traditional of what you would expect. They're actually bringing Hard Breach this time. Oh my goodness. But Rice, he's going to take out Hitman immediately, no longer having to worry about the roaming Hitman Mozzie that was upstairs last round on Frost. He did cause some damage, made a lot of things a lot more difficult for the attack. But now he's 6 feet under. He's already put in a casket, and that also will clear a majority of the top floor as the breach goes down. So much map control in a matter of 40 seconds has been acquired by SSG Academy as they're starting to put pressure on the bomb site.
Outlast also only has mute devices, so moving over to this wine wall now should be a lot easier. There is some ability to contest it. Holes in the bottom of the wall, but that's no Yana clone. That's Silent taking control for SSG Academy with an angle on blue. He's looking to land a double. Mohes walking up behind, now on the bomb chassis and putting the bomb on the floor. It's a complete slaughter for SSG Academy as Outlast are caught with a 2 extended roam. Mohes falls off the plant, albeit only temporarily, and likely with minimal impact. Mace will get 1 kill for Outlast, but it's likely impactless. Somebody wraps around, that being Snake, to even up the score between the two teams.
This is more so what we expected out of SSG Academy, where they have the proper reads, and when you're going down the checklist of, hey, we need to get breach open, we need to clear out some top floor roam potential, and then we can go for an execute. All of a sudden, when you have a very pedigreed IGL like Mohes that can maybe drone out the bomb site and be like, hey, guess what? They have nothing to stop us. They switch on a dime, get a breach open, then they hit the back. They were getting that bomb down at about 40 seconds into the round, at about 2:20. That is a phenomenal read coming out of SSG, and it ultimately led to a phenomenal round win.
Outlast cannot leave those kinds of openings against a team this experienced in comparison to the rest of the league. Because as you said, Mohes with that IGLing, these players just in general being aggressive who can realize opportunities, sit in an area for 15 seconds or so, get a good read on the situation, and then make a heads-up play like we saw Silent do. Walk in, take a chance that somebody's watching left instead of right, and then completely turn the round on its head, call the rest of his team in, and make a 5v1 before Outlast can even react, leaving holes that allow players like Silent or like Snake to make those calls and then allow Mohes to then use all that information to call a big play. It's going to be a quick game, even if you had a very convincing round number 1, if you let that keep happening.
Exactly. And with SSG Academy, once again, we're gonna see potentially on this bomb site being one of my favorite rushed executes. If you just go and send it in through the window as soon as you maybe get the player off the hatch up above inside of library. But also on the flip side, you can go from the bottom up perspective that we currently see being droned out by players like Snake and Silent. They're making sure that there's no flank potential, which sometimes you can see a lot with a Soulless or anybody roaming down below, or even as Snake comes in. If you can push up these blue stairs, you can maybe get a freebie easily.
There are some roaming, but not so much inside of the basement. Moses all the way inside of dining to watch the angles inside of fireplace, but mainly it's upstairs and very traditional, as we've seen on Bar and Gaming. Somebody in the corner that, as you see, you'll need to use some Capital Fire Bolts to knock out. Ban a little bit of a tricky spot, but he finds his way out. Singed a little bit on the way down, but all he smells is burnt rubber. Sprinting down into that hatch. Very solid hold for Outlast on this top floor. The Dokkaebi call might ring out. The defense still holding on to all of this control.
Yeah, and so far on the time perspective, they're doing a pretty dang good job at holding up above. SSG Academy, they had the first floor, and that's exactly where Snake is going to be able to come up from and strike down the anchor. No more smokes. That's a hugely impactful kill from Snake, and maybe he can even double up once again, but as Bay takes out Rice Mohes, he's going to take down Hitman once again, rotating on the backside of the site. A space, he's going to go for 2 and take out and get that refrag.
There's a gunfight or a player might tip the scales. Never mind. I was going to say it was Snake. Talk about how he's creeping up from the depths, but Silence just stormed into the site. Picked up Diffuser from the double window. SSG Academy need to have a solid hole on this Frost. Snake moving around the corner. He's been spotted, but he gets the win instead. 2 in a row for SSG Academy. This one a little bit more tenuous, a little bit more difficult, still seemingly solid by the end of the round.
Yeah, once again, it's just a little bit of playmaking from SSG Academy after a proper read. They went through the full checklist of everything you would expect to see from a bar games attack, where, sometimes you send just an entry from coming down below. You can get that free pick. That's what we saw Snake hit as he just hit a devious lick on the player inside of the supply closet. Upstairs, there was so much going on from a utility perspective, trying to remove that library player, distracting him away from the hatch, even as when he dropped, another player rotated into top mezzanine. And then all of a sudden, Silent just walked in the bomb site after the smoke was dead. There was nothing to stop him. He got the probably most impactful pick of the round, was able to get the bomb down, and there's just so much pressure for Outlast players retaking from outside the bomb site that there was just really nothing they could do.
Now at least Outlast can go back to the site that's yielded their only win on the defense so far, Kitchen and Dining. Part of this was built off the back of 3 consecutive engagements, 2 going the way of Outlast and 1 going the way of SSG Academy, despite that very team getting the first kill in those sets of engagements. Outlast was able to get a 4v3 very early on that set the tone for the remainder of the game, but since then, SSG Academy have gotten the opening pick every single round, and in recent history have converted their previous 2.
Yeah, and that's just hugely impactful because Outlast, the first round that they found success was with aggression, but it seems like SSG Academy have really wisened up to what Outlast are trying to bring to the table. And when you're on Chalet defense, if you just sit back on the bomb site and try to take it, most of the time, you're just going to get absolutely suffocated. There needs to be some active maneuvers, and that's exactly what Hitman's going to be doing as he takes down Rice. Down goes the Thermite. Definitely not a player that you want to have fall early, especially on this kind of attack where you're going to want to go lobby, you're going to want to get the breach open and probably try to plant, and that's all not able to happen.
I don't really know what was happening there. Mohas decided, I believe, to take mezzanine. Maybe didn't know that the Warden had moved into that position, but Mohas extended far, far away from his backup inside of Library and on top of Blue Stairs. And that was the little remaining hard breach that SSG Academy had to their name, now gone. Exothermics first, hard breach charges second, and SSG Academy, just like round 1, back in a 3v4, this time with a lot more utility to work with. Sure, they might not have flashes, and the Dokkaebi calls might be gone, but Silent has those nades. He might have found an opening. Black wall empty. Knows somebody's probably around bathroom with the reinforcements cutting off master bedroom and office. He's got complete freedom to play inside of office. Throw 1 grenade, make that 2. Force Hitman out of his position, but right into the Frost crosshairs. The trades land for the moment. Back to a 2v2. Both those nades were used, and one went for a kill, but Space is not daunted. He's holding those angles, but they're all turned against him. Mike now alone in a 1v2, but Snake's on low HP, and the Mira's got a C4 to work with. Maybe even a flank. He's got the stones for it. With 45 seconds left, Snake will use the remainder of his breach charges to open up some remaining vertical holes. Maybe take a little bit more time to find some intel.
Yeah, the drone work's going to come out. These players on SSG Academy, they want to pinpoint the location of this final player. For Mike, he hasn't found a kill so far. He's going to have to find at least 2 if he wants to win this round and really kind of make a solid case for the defensive side. But the players drop. The execute might be going down, Carter.
Eddie's waiting. Eddie knows someone's probably in backside. That position's confirmed, though Snake is the one that falls. Eddie's got to push for the kill. He's got to win this engagement. Mike's got 1, and he gets 2 as well. Make that Outlast second round. A flurry of 2s and a flurry of engagements. Outlast somehow even the score despite Snake's best effort.
Mike.
Yeah, he's gonna drop half.
Good shit, Mike. You're so fucking good.
Oh my god, oh my god. Mike,
Wobble
Mike,
top.
Mike, wait until after.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs.
There was some definite energy in those comms. I mean, as everything kind of shown out with Outlast, that is a momentum breaker on SSG Academy, but they can't seem to hop over the hurdle that is that bomb site. And what a phenomenal clutch coming out of Mike to get his first 2 kills. I think that C4 was probably the most underrated aspect of it, where he purposely or perfectly, not purposely, perfectly led Snake. It was like a quarterback throwing to a wide receiver through that floor.
Beautiful 1v2 for Mike right there. Both the utility, a little bit of luck, of course, the Snake going for the rotate and the wraparound. But he does able to land it by the end of it. And that's his 2 kills. What an impactful 2 kills at that. Outlast able to win Kitchen and Dining both times now, Connor. But unfortunately for them, SSG Academy got a solid hold on the other 2. Foreign games maybe not as strong as the basement, but still a very solid win.
Yeah, and getting 2 rounds on defense on a traditionally attacker-sided map is a pretty good kind of metric. And now with 2 more rounds to play with, if they get a 3-3 split, things might be looking on the up for Outlast. Sure, SSG Academy, they've always, with these players, been historically stronger on the defensive side, but defensive side of Chalet does require quite a bit of nuance, and SSG Academy don't seem to be winning all the gunfights that they might expect, and maybe going into that little bit of overconfidence that you were alluding to earlier, Carter?
Maybe. They've definitely shown that they aren't too scared about Outlast, but Outlast have shown that, especially when it comes to the late round, they can turn things around. They can turn their fortunes. SSG Academy have worked their way on in. They've taken control of that top floor, moving to the other side this time, trying to go for an entire full clear, not necessarily creeping up through the depths and getting stuck outside of library. They found one player sitting inside of dining. This is played by the Frost before, Moses, I believe, but now it's Space taking the helm of dining, but he'll rotate out very quickly once he sees the drones walk in. The bullets fly in soon after. Wants to hold on to the site, especially with half the round gone. He's already made a lot of good work happen just in wasting that time and forcing SSG Academy to take the time to clear him out, even if he doesn't end up getting a kill.
Yeah, and as things stand for this bomb site, it was kind of a requirement of some massive playmaking on the side of SSG Academy, not on the traditional places, not over towards library, not over towards top mezzanine. That's where the gunfights were won by Outlast. It was the site hit and the creeping up the lobby stairs that was able to swing the favor into the way of SSG Academy, and so far that hasn't really happened. Snake's going up above. He's taking a gunfight, sure, but the players are falling down as Moses is going to go for 2.
And this is where Outlast have so far had a very strong showing. If they let SSG Academy just move on in, go with their attacking strategy, but don't give them an opportunity to win a gunfight, they might be able to flank and catch a couple off guard. Snake finally gets the first kill for the attack in round 5. But all it yields is upstairs. There are still a plethora of defenders stationed in and around the bomb site. Space can cut off the hatch drop. Moses as well. They can play this contact. Mike can too. They know this execute is going to come from bar and come from the hatch. They just got to wait for those feet to hit the floor. The moment Snake drops, him and another teammate, Rice, also fall. Outlast take the lead for the second time in this match, but in a much different circumstance.
This was about as textbook of a defense as you could get out of Outlast, where the fall off was proper at the right time. As soon as we saw the mezzanine player hop over that banister, we saw the Frost just go absolutely crazy. 2 incredibly impactful kills, but more importantly, was able to fall back with the rest of the team. The Toxic Babes, they weren't expended early in the round like we saw last time on that attack, as well as the smoke died first inside of the supply closet. We can just see, as Mike was able to survive towards the execute phase, how influential those Toxic Babes were to really squelling the attacking prowess of SSG Academy, not letting them get aggressive, not allowing them to hit the site until it was too little too late.
Just one round now, and Outlast. A lot of things I don't think any of us expected will happen. First, they'll have the lead over SSG Academy going into the half. Definitely, I think, something that will surprise a lot of us, or at least surprised a lot of us, thinking about how this game would go before it started. Second, they'll get the advantage on Chalet defense with SSG Academy, a team that is packed to the brim with talented entries. Something that I don't think a lot of us expected either. And then, on top of all that, be an SSG Academy that looked like they were starting to lose momentum by the end of this attack. And now in round 6, something they'll need to recover, because it's not done yet. You can get a 3-3, and maybe with some defenses, that's manageable. Maybe that's doable. They've got to make sure they don't let players like Hitman or players like Moses take the entry away from them that SSG had a stranglehold on for the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, and Hitman has actually been doing his name justice. As you would expect with a Hitman, he's getting kills. He's doing really well and finding that success in Tier 2 that we finally been waiting for. For SSG Academy, there's some more pressure on them. A 3-3 half on the attack is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but a 2-4 split, that's really fighting up the hill as they seem to want to go for more of a direct take. They're already putting pressure on the back. They're trying to get these breaches open. And I assume, Carter, as soon as these Selmas are open, Silent wants to get jiggy with it. He wants to get in the bomb site fast.
SSG won this round off of the back of Silent in particular, finding an opening inside of the site and then moving on in. But Outlast seem to be wise to it now. They've got a player on West main stairs to watch for it, but Silent still gets that kill. They've got the hatch to think about as well, and it's still in the hands of Moses. So even though Silent's got that first pick, the way into the site is not clear whatsoever. There is somebody from SSG on that top floor, though, looking to wrap around and take control of that hatch. First grenade goes through, but it does not land, and Space gets a kill as well. Outlast, they hold the site. They hold the hatch, denying SSG's entry, and now back to a 4v4 with Silent, their key entry on half HP as well. This is by far and away still in the hands of Outlast, but now they've downed the blue player. Snake moved on in, Mohes as well. A triple for Silent now, a 4v2. The two remaining players, one on top of the hatch and the other, he's in the wind by main stairs. He's let them slip in. Now his teammate Space is gone. SSG, despite a quiet round seemingly favoring Outlast, will get that imperfect but doable 3-3.
Yep, and once again, the SSG Academy players using their experience to make the opening that they needed. Really being that stalemate breaker was Silent as soon as there was a little bit of shenanigans trying to break open that hatch player away from that position. You know, there was a missed nade. If he was able to, thread that needle, I would have been incredibly impressed as he was going through like a small Smelma breach as at an angle trying to go up a hatch. But ultimately, when he's able to just get the pick onto the pillar player, as soon as that blue player fell down, that was Hitman. He dropped to the floor. That was the go, go, go moment for SSG Academy, where they put their pedal to the metal. They bursted through the bomb site. Sure, I was a little bit worried with Eddie being solo on the other side of the bomb site with the bomb, with the diffuser. He was on main breach while the entirety of the rest of his roster all went wine side, but ultimately it did all work out in their favor.
Now with that half done, SSG looking far more beatable than I think a lot of us thought they'd be. I'm sure a lot of us figured they'd maybe drop 1 or 2 rounds, especially to a play like we saw from Mike, all the way back in round 4 to win that dining defense. We thought those would be, that'd be it for Outlast defensive half. But no, it was overall some very solid play from Outlast, specifically in outmaneuvering SSG in the late round, and SSG leaving a few spots, a few gaps, and Outlast players could fill. Now, as they switch to the defense, I have to imagine they want to implore a similar strategy. Get aggressive early on, take some fights, but don't give Outlast openings that you don't need to give them. On a bar games defense especially, that's the name of the game. Hold library, hold blue, hold mezzanine, but don't give anything away over something that doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you give Outlast the opportunity, they are going to take it. Typically with newer rosters that aren't as experienced, what they're going to struggle with is on the attacking side, no matter what the map is. But as Silent's going to be able to pick himself back up immediately, that's why you have the Doc in this position. If you notice, it's just Wamai gadgets. There's no traditional ADSs to bolster up this position. So when he has those extra stim shots, he's just going to be absorbing all of this utility. He can go down as many times as he would like, as he's actually just going to drop away and forfeit that map control.
It's also why that Capital is sometimes so important for clearing out that position. You could certainly do it with the nades, and Hitman could do it with the G36 as well. He might lose the Doc, but he gets the smoke and the Wamai, no problem. So even with some maybe wasted utility and a Doc fleeing their sights, Hitman's more than made up for it with those 2 kills. Now Silence back in the site, done some damage to their intel, but Outlast have the majority of their drones. They've got the majority of their time. It might take round 7 and take the lead for a 3rd time this game.
Absolutely massive work from Hitman. That caught me off guard, and I'm sure SSG Academy was just as perplexed. Eddie, he's going to be taking some damage as Hitman gets his third. It's Silent, it's Eddie against the world, and they're both on low HP, Carter. It's going to be an uphill battle, and I don't know if Moses necessarily heard this, but he's sitting in the corner at the right spot, picks up the kill. Silent, he was marked for death too on the site. Execute in the first round looked incredibly clean from Outlast, where they're going to make my point completely mute. They seem to know how to attack this map and play with synergy.
Specifically Hitman as well. I mean, a lot of that is just from the individual effort of the Yana. Had those nades to try and lob over, take down that player in the corner, but by getting those 2 kills, it not only pressured those remaining players inside a bar, but also forced Eddie, who was still roaming, off the site, all the way in master bedroom. He's now completely cut off from the rest of his team. The only safe way, in theory, based on his available information to rotate back, is down Solar Stairs. And guess what? There's Moses on the Brava to cut it off. Getting mezzanine control, getting top blue control, obviously, was a key point in Outlast strategy to make that round work. But when it happened, everything was going their way to make it a perfect layup for Outlast and a death knell for SSG Academy by cutting off their roamer, taking down 2 players, and also just forcing the remaining site players to deal with probably 4 different people.
Yeah, Moses has more patience than me. I thought for a second he was on the other side of the door and then just didn't hear the footsteps, but he was safed away, and most people, if they heard the sprinting down the staircase, they would have swung, but he was nice, safe, and tucked, still got the frag regardless, and Outlast just kind of did everything that they needed on that attack. There's really not any holes that you could poke into their plan, where they got the top floor control by forcing with utility to burn away that dock, and then Hitman took the space properly. He won the gunfights and really caught SSG Academy off guard, which seems to be the case in both of the first rounds. We saw it on SSG Academy's attacks, where they were out-aggressed in the first round. Then they started to kind of feel it out on what Outlast wanted to do. But as you go deeper and deeper into this map, and now you're on a less advantageous side, you might not have the opportunity to bounce back as much as they would like.
Have to hold on now to stop any further rounds to be gained by Outlast. Some control has already been attained, but Eddie down below is going to try to stop it. Outlast want to move into library, but now they know somebody's down inside a bar, waiting for them to move on in. Oh, you don't want to lose Hitman. Saw him walking in place 9 and 5 right now. You don't want to lose Hitman in this round. Thankfully for them, Eddie's backed off. He's all the way down in the basement. There are some castle barricades in their way, so getting in the library is not necessarily the easiest or most direct pathway into the site, but it's still an important bit of control. Half the round gone, though, Connor. A lot of time spent just now moving into library, and this is the first guy even in the building.
Yeah, and if Outlast are going for what I think they are, they're going to go for the lobby plant, get some OSA shields set down for the long gunfights, and force SSG Academy to try to go for retake. That's going to be quite difficult to do, considering kind of, if Outlast play it right, you're just kind of sitting ducks, and long-range advantage is going to go into the way of the attackers, especially when Bay can just hit the site from the L hallway. Sure, there's a prox alarm, but the rest of Outlast are going fast.
He's got 2 OSA shields as well. He might still find time to set one down. No breach open, so no support from Fireplace, but a lot of angles still in their favor. Snake will take and win the gunfight outside. Now let's find themselves in a man disadvantage. They've got the bomb down, but again, there's no breach open. So holding this, they'll have to do it inside of the site. And support from West Main, it's no longer there. Snake's on the defuse. Hitman does have the angle, but he's a 1v2 now. Mohes, he knows where he is. Know where that Yana's playing. All Hitman has to do is waste time, but it's certainly not a favored position. One taking the gunfight. What a flick from Hitman. We're back to a winnable round. 1v3 to 1v1 to not a 5v3 for Outlast. Barely enough time, but still enough for Mohes to get the defuse and tie us up once again.
I don't know what's been going on with Hitman, but my gosh, he's playing a lot better than we expect out of him. Because it's not like he's a new player that we know nothing about. My gosh, he's hitting some shots. But another thing I just want to ask is, what did Outlast see as a gap in the side of SSG Academy? Because sure, you can get the pick and you can get the bomb down, but the post-plant positions were not set up properly, especially with that breach not opened, Carter.
The breach not open. I mean, I get, going quickly. I get taking hold of opportunities as you see them. I mean, that's how SSG Academy won a couple rounds on their attack. But lacking the breach angle, man, it denies so much potential for coverage. I mean, think about that 1v2. Maybe if Hitman has that option to have that wall open, he's not just trapped inside a bar, hoping that they push up short and take a gunfight with him. He can back up all the way to the stairs and watch them if they creep even an inch towards dining or towards the bomb. It also gives the defense a lot of angles to work with. That is true. But Hitman still has a lot more opportunity to cover. And Outlast maybe getting a little too quick, maybe getting a little too fast with it. Because they realized there was an opportunity, and it seemed that they did have it with Bay getting that first kill on a player AFK in sight. But I think they hit the gas just a bit too quick before maybe checking off some of those boxes that needed to be checked.
Yeah, it's the heat check moment. It's sure great, good players, and almost any player can get an opening pick, but it's the great players that know how to peel back properly, not overheat, and actively use and utilize the advantage that you just got for your team. If we had seen the Osa just back off after getting that first pick, I think that round would have gone a completely different direction.
She still had her 2 talent shields as well.
Exactly.
So not only does she back off, you know, they open the breach, they have more time to work with, they have a man advantage as well that they're not going to give up. Got those talent shields to set up for those long angles that Hitman could play on that execute. But it is a round now done. Round 8, unfortunately not Outlast way, and if this game ends up being a close one that could cost them by the end of it, could cost them now. Moses, the first one gone to some EDDs. I mean, Connor, if there was a fall from grace that might yet happen, a round that was almost a 1v3, but even then could have been winnable beforehand, but then an opening duel lost to 2 Capcan tracks? Come on, man. I need more than that.
Also, shout out to our observer, because Mr. Nova did catch Silent putting down those traps, and those were the exact ones that got the kill, as he's going to double up and take down Bay as well. Down goes the Dokkaebi, which is another very impactful operator from a utility standpoint, as SSG just seemed to be pressing the issue more and more. Things are getting more difficult for Outlast to try to stalemate break, because there's just so many strong positions coming out, but Hitman's dropping.
And it's a 3v3. I'm going to be honest. I didn't expect that one would work, but with no ADSs or magnets on the board, that nade was able to destroy the pillar shield, make their way into sight, and somehow give Outlast a 2v2. Now, the HP does favor SSG, but the kills certainly favor Outlast. If only they had taken more time last round, Connor, because we could be on match point. Instead, it's a 5v4, and Outlast for the 4th time now reclaim their lead.
They just do not want to fall down. This is a roster that's probably feeling some crazy energy, because they're going for this upset. They're hitting the site properly. They're dropping into what seems like death.
Nice! Oh my god! Oh my god! Jesus!
No fucking moment, babies! That's what we're talking
What
about!
do you
Wallahi.
That's what we're
I don't
talking
know.
about, boy.
I mean, Connor, we could be on match point right now. We could be on match point. If Bay gets that kill that says, hey guys, I got one, let's take 30 seconds or so before we push into the site. It's 6-3 Outlast right now. And, you know, we were doing a lot of good PR for SSG Academy before this game started. And in an alternate universe, in a very likely alternate universe, if Outlast just had a little more sense to them, it is 6-3 match point. Because we just had, I wouldn't even say necessarily convincing round to start, but somehow, beyond any reason that I can find, they somehow turn a 3v5, vaulting into a Selma charge. A hole opened by a Selma charge, Connor. One in the wall. They turn a 3v5 into a 2v2 off of that. How? How is that possible?
Honestly, I don't know. But I'm of the firm suspicion right now that if we had been watching this game with no names, if it was player A, B, C, whatever, we didn't know who was who, almost everybody would agree that Outlast is just flat out the better team right now. Sure, there's a little
100%.
bit of sort of bias towards the pedigree of SSG Academy, but Outlast, they have better reads in my opinion. Their attacks have looked better. They should have won more rounds. And with SSG, it's been the sort of the big play potential that makes things go their way. Outlast, they're playing better as a team. The kills are more spread. Sure, Hitman, he's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but with the way he's getting into the map off of these openings, you can tell that they're droned properly and his supporting players are really pushing him up that pedestal.
Yeah, of the teams that I saw coming into today, SSG Academy versus Outlast, I'm thinking, oh, SSG Academy is going to be the one that's winning 3v5s in 5 seconds when they're the team with 3 bodies left on the board. Not Outlast. Not Outlast whatsoever. And again, that's not even necessarily a statement against Outlast. It's just a statement to the caliber of players that SSG Academy have and do still have. Even with it being down 5-4 or 4-5, and still could have been 3-6 had Outlast won the round just before the one we watched. Of course, taking a little bit of a second. One player getting back into the lobby. But Outlast, as you said, Connor, no team names, no player names. They've looked like the better team. Sure, you know, maybe the first half you could equivocate a little bit, say, oh, Outlast got a 1v2. Say, oh, they got some good spawn. It would have been better for SSG Academy if just some unlucky things didn't happen. Maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. Who knows? But this second half, the one that could end the game, I'm in 100% agreement with you. Outlast have looked like the better team and looked like how I think SSG Academy were going to perform going into today in terms of just the eye test of how these rounds are going.
Yeah, I mean, if there was no names, I would probably be predicting, like, if you had to, like, you know, put all the puzzle pieces, like, oh, well, who was player 9 on this team on the right? I probably would have said Hitman is Snake. And that's a very big compliment, because that's exactly how he's playing. It seems like Outlast are just out SSGing Academy. Out SSG Academying SSG Academy. I don't know why words are so hard, but overall, maybe we can look back to the map ban phase of, hey, SSG Academy wanted to go to a comfortable map that we know that they can, in theory, outgun a team like Outlast. Maybe they should have gone to the theme park instead and tried to play structured.
This is one of those games where, to follow off your train of thought, if I may, if you are, as we've said multiple times so far, if you are the team that has more experience, more pro-level experience, more high-level competitive experience, you should be more coordinated on those maps like Theme, like Bank, that a team like Outlast will struggle on. And going here, where that kind of evens the playing field in this particular aspect, so to speak, you and I both figured, okay, SSG Academy will outdo them in the kills, in the fragging, in the mechanical skill. Because we're both thinking before the game even starts that, all right, strategically, SSG Academy probably have the edge, but mechanically, certainly, SSG Academy have the edge. Now, at least in this best of one on this particular day, not necessarily the case. You have all 10 of our players back in the lobby, though. We can finally get back into it once we make sure everything's okay. But don't worry, we're about to be back.
I mean, we can ask all these questions like, oh my gosh, hey, maybe Outlast are going to continue out shooting SSG Academy, but at the end of the day, we're just speculating, and what we have inside the, inside the lobby is what's more important, and even more important than that is, how is Outlast going to continue this momentum, or is it going to be broken entirely? Because once the side swap to the attack, I would say in all 3 of the rounds, they've played better. But there was just a slight mistake from Outlast, sort of oversight in not getting the breach in the second attack that made things kind of go awry.
All right, we're back into it. Everyone's had a breather. I'll bet, de facto breather. Had at least some time to yourself just to calm down. 3 EDDs on 1 door, man. All right, wow. And no, they can just shoot that from the, whatever. It's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Had some time to breathe. Had some time to collect our thoughts. Still a very close game. SSG Academy can power up, play to the ceiling that we know that they can, or at least we've theorized that they can. Could be an OT game. Could be a regulation win if they can win 3 Chalet defenses in a row, which so far is not something anybody, Outlast or SSG Academy, have managed to do just yet. And on bar games as well, not the place I would expect that place to start.
I mean, This used to be kind of the default primary site for a lot of teams, but people have figured out kitchen a lot more. Basement is no longer seeming like a horrible bomb site as when it initially came through. But as Outlast is already starting to put pressure into all these key pieces, we have to remember the first attacking round that we saw out of Outlast, because they used their utility properly to remove the library player. But it was the big play from Hitman who just jumped right in. He tried to steal the Sonic's play, and Silent's going to take out Mike. But on the other side, Rice gets immediately refragged. That was actually a trade, never mind.
Well, that didn't work, unfortunately. Hitman, though, I think is just north of maybe 12 kills, if I recall correctly. He is still alive, and he's got the diffuser. Does take a few shots, deals some damage in turn, but not able to net a kill. Bay is almost certainly retrievable based on time, based on positioning, based on all conceivable factors, but he will remain on low HP for the duration of round 10, the next minute and a half. We got one Dokkaebi call, one remaining EE1D after this one elapses, and Hitman's got 2 frag grenades as well, and now they've got a 3v3 with second floor control. Connor, honestly, this is pretty doable.
Yeah, it definitely is, but where is the sort of weakness that SSG Academy has right now? That seems to be the answer that Outlast are searching for. And I think it might be this main lobby side if Space is able to get a kill, but instead he's going to fall down. It's going to come to a hatch drop once again that won't sort of amount to anything, Carter.
No, he had a good idea with the nade, but oh no, the Frostvat does Bay in. He was on low HP anyway. Winning that 1v2 with 1 bullet of HP left was always going to be a tall task for Bay. The Frostmat just expedites the process. 5v5 now, SSG Academy denying Outlast their 4th lead of the game so far. And as you said, Connor, that main lobby, that fireplace area, did prove to be where the round was shifted. But unfortunately, it was not Space getting a kill and maybe working that angle into his team's favor. It was that piece of the triangle falling, and the other 2 vertices not really able to bear the remaining weight.
Yeah, I mean, what is a... Like, it's just a line. It's just a line segment.
Yeah, it's just a line segment. It's just a bounded line.
It's not even a shape anymore. It has no area. It's just
it's one-dimensional.
Exactly. That's ultimately how Outlast's attack fell, because a lot of the pieces seem to almost fall in the right place. The aggressive play of just opening up that library window and vaulting through it immediately, it can work, but it didn't. It was seeming like SSG Academy were ready for that aggression. It's a played out play. It used to have the sort of surprise factor, but we've started seeing it pop up too many times. And as SSG Academy were able to get that opening pick, sure, Hitman maybe was able to sneak in once again, but the positions fell off, and SSG Academy were able to just fall back and force funnels that didn't work out in Outlast's favor.
Now SSG got to go to dining. Talked about bar games at one time being the bastion of the defense on Chalet, or at least the most preferred bomb site on Chalet. It's now kitchen and dining in very recent history. This is the spot where if SSG Academy want to close this out and at the middle of that 3-round win streak, this is it right here. This is make or break for Outlast. Match point or no match point. One team is coming away with 6 at the end of round 11. SSG Academy bolstering their defenses, the Solus and the Warden rotating back, some moving to that top floor, more vertical angles being made to watch the west main position, and now some utility from Outlast as well to clear out the periphery of SSG Academy's utility. The shield gone, another one now being dealt with thanks to Bay. But over half the round to go, and still a lot of angles that have to go clear. Rice can't play behind that shield anymore. Nobody on that bedroom rotate either. Somebody's got to be the first one to take an engagement.
Yeah, and I actually don't like the adjustment from Outlast, because their last attack of this bomb site was like 99% accurate. It was very good. They had the Thermite, they had the Osa. Those no longer are there, but it seems like the Selma breaches are just going to try to cut the visibility and not necessarily be a access point into the bomb site. They're still going to probably have to push the L hallway and try to establish some crossfires protecting the diffuser if it tries to go down. But Snake is going to be a lot more impactful, in my opinion, all the way on those deep angles because there's no Osa's Talon shields to challenge him.
And those deep angles are especially important because as opposed to that previous dining attack that Outlast almost won, there's nobody sitting forward anymore. Nobody's sitting inside a B. Everyone is holding these long angles on the same floor as the bomb site or vertical angles up above. So with 2 players from the attack now pushing up short, there's nobody that seems right for the taking. Eddie's still the first to fall, though Rice trades it very soon after, and SSG solidify their lead thanks to Snake. Hitman's still up short. He's got a very useful angle, but no one, not a single defender is biting. They're all holding tight angles, all holding vertical angles. Your breach player's now dead, and Mike's got to push into the site with the last person left. Match point now, SSG Academy, and they take the lead for the 2nd time in the series.
Great adjustment from SSG Academy where they no longer were providing any openings for Outlast to exploit. Playing properly into the defense is exactly what the attack did. You could tell by the positions of a lot of the players on the defense that they wanted to take those long-range gunfights. Snake was probably just sitting there salivating at the idea of a smoke plant with his 1.5 and his Warden glasses, but ultimately the plant never went down because they couldn't really get into the bomb site because they died challenging to the angles that they weren't able to supplement with utility because they didn't have the Osa shields. I'm going to keep on rambling because it kind of frustrates me that Outlast seems to have in their repertoire the perfect attack to take care of that defense, and they didn't utilize it.
And the game isn't over. I do want to say that. The game's not over. But that was seemingly your moment where you needed to show, like, okay, we still got it, guys. Post-pause, post-rehost, we've still got it. Because now you got to go on to Garage, where admittedly we saw a very impressive round from Outlast. It was a 3v5 with hatch control still, I believe, in the hands of the defense. Their only way into Y being a single Selma hole, a vaultable Selma hole. And somehow, with that minimal set of angles, they make it a 3v5 to a 2v2 that they end up winning. But it was still a 3v5 that players had to overperform in to make it a winnable round. And now SSG, they've got match point. They have a small buffer, but still overtime potentially. If they end up dropping this round, and Outlast need to reclaim a performance that even when it happened, seemed to be a bit of an outlier.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure because I don't know if Hitman has any more heroics left in him because he's just had so many. Surely, eventually, the tank has to go empty for this man, but his team's going to definitely need him if they want to push towards overtime. And even getting to overtime is going to be something very, very impressive for Outlast, considering how we were kind of king haters on these guys. But Eddie is kind of the king slayer as DaBaby. Mr. Bay falls down. The opening pick comes from Eddie as he was using that soulless vision to just find out where the drones were coming from and then shut down an entry point.
Set of nades gone as well. Hitman, the only one remaining with those, and Outlast creeping towards that similar 3v5 position. A lot of hard breaching to work with. They've got those Selmas and those exothermics, so the potential to open up as many angles as they want on the site, it's there. They've got a lot of opportunities to make that work. They're grasping at straws at the moment. Mohes, he's inside a bar. Maybe won't get a kill, but still somebody that can hit a flank later. Snake, that Oryx, he's creeping down Solar Stairs. I was about to say space on West Main, but Mike's made it into sight. Hello? Where's the coverage, SSG? We've got overtime. Not a big buffer to work with. Mike's got the bomb down, though Outlast in a man disadvantage. They've got the angles, and now they've equalized. Now they've taken the lead. Eddie finally takes back the hatch. Cannot believe no one was watching that one. And a 1v1 to see if SSG, the #1 seed, cement their spot, or if Moses can take them to overtime. Another man disadvantage on Garage turns into a round win, and it might just save Outlast the game.
What a play from Outlast, as Mike was just in there. But he not only got the bomb down, but in all of that craziness, he actually netted 2 of those kills that swung the favor back into the into the temperament of Outlast, and absolutely massive stuff. For SSG Academy, I think that their sort of defensive plan there wasn't necessarily the best. Those flanks took a little bit too long, Carter. I think you'll agree that if Snake, as well as Mohas, got a little bit more active on the top, they probably could have done something because there was no hatch control from the attackers, and that's exactly where the bomb went down.
Yeah, they were playing a retake strategy for that hatch. As you said, they had Mohes inside a bar. They had Snake actively flanking down Solar before that execute even happened. So they had players seemingly in positions who could take control of that hatch and then maybe deny the plant, catch somebody falling off, and it just never materialized. And if it did, it came too late. And the only time we saw that hatch really become of relevance, at least to us visually, was Eddie making it a 1v1, and at that point, the bomb had been down. Mike had already been in the site for 8,000 years and had left it and extricated himself from the situation, got 2 kills, the whole 9 yards. The moment was gone for that hatch to work out. Now, Outlast have got their overtime. They've got what they needed. But their attacks definitely seemed, at least in that first half, to be the better side. So they need to win this dining defense, which they did twice. Might be match point. And still an 8-6 victory. Outlast can play their cards right.
Yeah, and it's still the interesting SSG Academy strat. No hard breach besides Rice's can openers, but he's going in towards the trophy side. It's a little bit of an interesting strategy. It's going to be fun. Eddie's coming up the staircase with the shotgun and gets an absolutely freebie onto Moses, who, if you remember, was definitely a thorn in the side of SSG Academy's attacks last time they were around here, but so was Mike.
Yeah, Mike was as well. Now Eddie's got this mirror window staring at 2 of Outlast defenders. Moses, I don't know what you think was corny, but man, this is a bad joke if you're asking me. Eddie with a mirror window looking at 3 different defenders. Rice moving into A, diffuser in hand. SSG have turned the defense on its head, have turned it around against the very defenders who set it up. But Mike might have a way in. Bomb going down behind that chassis. Nobody watching it. The bomb goes down and he still loses the fight. Bay's got to get 4 kills of Outlast, even have a chance at match point. And he's got to defuse on top of that. Rice still in. Caught off guard, but oh no, it's whiffs all around for Outlast. And match point for the Academy.
You know, Rice should not have won either of those gunfights that he did inside that bomb site, but he's a survivor. He's a trooper. And I guess we finally got to see the proper plan of what SSG Academy wanted to do. We saw both times that they brought this exact sort of attacking composition. Things didn't really work out in their favor. The Sens, as well as the Nomads, they got spawn peaked the very first round, so we didn't get to see those cool roly-poly play, blocking off the vision that allowed the hatch play to come up and the shotgun to get in close proximity while there was pressure from the windows. Moses, he didn't know where to look because he was being pressured by both sides, and then he got angry and said it was a corny play, but I would say it's more of an intelligent, very smart team organized play than anything else.
They got that necessary match point, not only just to have one round, as small a buffer as that is, but for one round to maybe allow things go wrong before you can finish it out. Now they get to go to their defensive stronghold, which again was also kitchen and dining. Hopefully maybe use that momentum that they've gathered over these past few rounds, especially finally having that rush work out to close it out 8-6. And give us the conclusion a lot of us expected, but not necessarily at the scoreline any of us anticipated.
Yeah, I did not expect this to go to overtime, but Outlast, they've definitely caught my eye. There have been some really great rounds, proper reads, and overall great team play from this roster. So even in the face of a defeat here, they're going to be at the top of the 0-1 teams, and I think they're going to catch the glare of a lot of these rosters that maybe lost some close games, that they are a force to be reckoned with. There's a reason they qualified for this event through a very cutthroat process. So if SSG Academy are able to do anything on this defensive side, which last time we saw it more so seemed like Outlast weren't able to attack it, we will get that result that you said is kind of expected, but at a different level.
Talk about expectations. What Outlast need is to stop the unexpected plays in this round. Eddie down below. Anybody getting too aggressive behind these deployable shields. Outlast need to keep this round ironclad shut. Not allow any funny business from SSG. And that means flank drones. That means drones in front of your entries. Util game on point. You got to win 2 in a row, 1 on each side. The only round of the attack! I'm talking no funny business, man! What the hell are you doing here? 2 players caught completely off guard. Vods sprints from behind a shield. Mach 5 flames behind him. Flores and Yana both gone. All the explosives in Outlast hands, dead on the floor.
That's a play that I expected Hitman to make. I almost like at a first glance, I was like, oh, the attack just got 2. Nope. That was Vods getting active on the defensive side. Sure, Mike, he's going to try to go into the bomb site. He's going to lose the fight to the castle immediately. They might have a little bit of control of the bomb site, but it's immediately shot down by Snake. Once again from those deep angles, and it's all up to Space Carter. It's a 1v4, and he's gonna die immediately. Vods, phenomenal round. SSG Academy, amazing post-rehost sort of recollection of themselves where they're able to string the rounds together and win this game entirely.
Again, you know, the result a lot of us expected, you know, a win for SSG and an L for Outlast, but 8-6 with Outlast, especially in that second half with some of their attacks really coming alive and showing what they have to offer and taking down maybe an overconfident opponent at times. I can't say for sure that Outlast are now going to be known as a team to be feared or a team to be worried about, but they've certainly gained a decent amount of respect after this game. And if we've learned anything, Connor, probably just don't take them to Chalet if you want a cleaner game.
Yeah, and somehow find a way to shut down Hitman, because when he died, the attacks did look a lot worse, but overall, Outlast did play well. There was some gimmicky plays from SSG Academy, but it's also kind of what we expected out of them. We expected some high-octane aggression constantly as they went towards their attacking side. They were able to just hit whenever they wanted, but they were also prone to making mistakes. Maybe that's the first game jitters as they're playing under a lot more of a prestigious banner for a lot of these players, but more than anything, I still do want to just go back to that point that Outlast has probably gained a lot of respect. All of us completely wrote them over, and they had the lead multiple times in this game. They got it to overtime where they almost had a 1v3 clutch that very well could have gone their way, but even more so, if they just opened up the breach, they probably win that round and in turn win the game in regulation.
And that is definitely the big point at the end of this, is that Outlast, they had a winnable game in their hands. A couple chances to close it out, or a couple rounds that, had they gone their way, would have resulted in a victory for them. A close one, but still a victory nonetheless against the #1 seed in the tournament. So even though that eludes them today, and the #1 seed beats the #16 seed, they still gave SSG a run for their money on a map that they're very comfortable on. And that is enough, especially this early on in the season, I would say, to go home, maybe not feeling satisfied, but feeling all right. There were good spots to that game, even if we ended up losing.
Yeah, there are definitely positives to kind of pick out of the negatives. And it's like one of those, it's like a bittersweet, like, hey, we lost, but you know, like, could have been worse. Definitely could have been a worse loss. So as they kind of look and prepare for their next week's opponents, which is going to be one of these other losers from the first round, if they're able to sort of refine a lot of their negatives, the sort of small amount of them, they can just bounce back and be in the 1-1 crew going into the second week. And that's where it's really going to find itself into a highly decisive and definitive game of where they can kind of make sure their entire season either is a failure or a success.
I just, man, 6-8 loss and a winnable game, man, for Outlast 16 seed coming into this. Maybe, again, not necessarily an upset, Still something that you just got to look back and say, this league is a lot closer. And I think a lot of people might be thinking on SSG Academy, especially the ratings. I mean, they're high, they're good, but we were expecting a stomp. We're expecting average 1.4 ratings across the board. If Mohes and Rice are your backline, they're still players that can take over games, that can put up ridiculous score lines. And even if they got some very solid entries, I mean, and we'll talk to one of them soon, this is still a very solid showing for Outlast.
Yeah, I mean, Bay, even though he kind of struggled overall, still had a couple of really good rounds. Mike, he also started slow. He was 0-2 or 0-3, I believe, when he got that 2v1 clutch that was a massive sort of momentum breaker on the side of Outlast's defenses going towards SSG Academy's attacks. But maybe, just maybe, just 1 or 2 kills going their way. Like we've been saying, it was a winnable game because there was a direct round that if they opened up the breach, I would put so much money on the fact that they would have won it.
I mentioned we would be talking to one of the entries on SSG Academy, and indeed we will. So Connor, I'll say bye to you for just a short period of time and say hello to one player on SSG Academy, none other than Snake. Snake, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
Well, you gave me a little bit of a heart attack throughout that game because we were all talking about that this was going to be a blowout. This wouldn't even necessarily be worth showing up for. And here we are. You damn near lost that at a couple points. Snake, what happened?
I mean, some really shit rounds from us, to be honest. Probably could have closed it out in regulation, maybe like 7-3, but I mean, credit to them. They did capitalize on our mistakes, so I mean, credit where credit's due. We didn't play good, but they capitalized for sure.
Of course, you got to give credit. And Outlast, of course, you guys were invited. Outlast were a team that came in during quals. I want to ask, as this is, kind of the first official debut in an official Ubisoft league for SSG Academy, what has been kind of the staff and the prep like for your team going into this? You guys have a decent bit of resources behind you, not just, of course, and coaches for your team specifically, but maybe the SSG staff broadly. What has been this kind of newfound support like, especially for, a T2 Tier 3 tournament?
I mean, the support's really great. We've got 3 coaches for us. They all split up the coach and analyst work among themselves, but they're all great. Some of the main guys also help out as well. We scrimmed them a few times, so the prep's been pretty good with the help from them. As for like the scrim load, it really hasn't been that much. We've only scrimmed like twice the past week. I mean, people been busy, got real life stuff to do. So this week it was pretty light, but I mean, we scrim here and there. Scrims are usually pretty solid too.
And of course, we've got the support staff, got the extensive support behind you guys, but looking at the team as well, I mean, we've got a lot of very good names on your roster, like yourself included, but also a lot of former pro talent, Mohes coming in from Mirage all the way back, coming from last year, players that made a very small debut like Silent, but still made a big debut as well. Do you guys feel those same kind of tier 1 expectations put on your own shoulders, or is this still kind of just like, you're just flexing the reputation you guys have?
I mean, I know me personally, I'm expecting to win this league flawlessly. I don't think we're going to drop a map.
Oh boy.
You know the names we got. I was on TSM, Mo was on Mirage, Rice CL, Eddie CL, Silent CL, both of them, Eddie and Silent did great in CL. I mean, the expectations are high, not to mention the level of our competition just kind of sucks. There's really no good teams in this league besides us, Ariel, and a couple of like pro bug stacks, but besides just 3-4 teams, no one else really has a chance. Like, we're gonna smoke everybody.
All right, well, listen, not to be that dude, but this is an 8-6 game we're talking about. Outlast 16th seed in a best of 1, to be fair, but still gave you guys a run for your money. But, so just to clarify for the final question, you think you're going through this league flawless? Just want to state that again for everyone at home.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the teams you're looking at who might, in another world, upset that? Carry the boats, other teams? Or what teams would you say have the potential to upset that flawless run you predict?
I think probably the only one actually is probably Ariel Arise, just because their team chem is actually really good. We've scrimmed them a few times and we know they put in a lot of work. I mean, double scrims, working a 9 to 5 for tier 2. So we know their team chemistry is going to be really good, but I think we still have a really good chance just to outplay them. I mean, if it's a BO1, anything can happen, but I'm pretty confident in our BO1 gameplay.
Well, I'm sure Poison is very excited to hear that they might be the team to upset the flawless run Snake has predicted. But thank you very much, Snake. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I mean, shout out SSG for giving us this opportunity. You know, they've been really great. Shout out my teammates. They're all really good, obviously. And I love you, Bio.
Shout out to Bio. Shout out to B10. All right, thank you very much, Snake. Congrats on the victory, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Well, heard it from Snake. Heard a flawless run predicted last time, Connor. We heard a flawless run predicted in an interview. It did pan out to be that way, didn't it?
Yeah, it became reality. Ha 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 ha.
He's talking about reality TV, by the way. He's talking about the Mr. B reality TV.
Yeah. But we also just heard a shout out to Bio, and guess what,
True.
Carter? He's playing next.
What? God. I can't even come up with a better segue into the next game than that. I mean, might as well. We'll take a short break right after this because we got Bio coming up next, Snake's favorite. See you then.